First of all, I want to normalize the kind of punishment thinking and mindset. It's so common, and we all grew up receiving, punishments or consequences. And the psychology of punishment is a desire to instill shame or hurt in another person. Now, of course, that sounds terrible when you say it out loud, that we want somebody else to feel ashamed or to feel pain or hurt in some way. But as Byron Katie says, hurt people hurt people. And so all of us at times when we've been really hurting in some way, whether it's overwhelm, feeling ashamed ourselves, feeling angry, feeling incompetent, feeling really hurt, any kind of pain or hurt, we want to, our instincts are to discharge pain, right? And one of the ways we discharge physiological arousal and pain is, through a kind of primal expression of it. And one of those primal expressions can be punishment. And very often in this society, it's not physical aggression, it's more emotional or verbal aggression. But it doesn't even have to be aggression. Sometimes punishments can be kind of very passive aggressive. And now just to ground it and contextualize that, we still see this in our corrective services, our justice system. We still see this in our education system. And what I want to focus on today is the psychology of punishment, because prisons exist and sometimes we need to keep people in them to protect society. Schools exist and they must have rules because the rules help create safety and equality. But the mindset of the people who work and exist in those institutions can be punitive, can be focused on punishment, so making someone else feel bad, or it can be one of compassion. Now, we know that compassion is much more conscious, much more deliberate, takes a lot of conscious awareness to practice it when we're feeling very hurt or stressed. And our instincts often implore us to lash out or to, punish, to gain back a sense of control in our lives by taking away something from somebody else or putting them in a less powerful position, a more powerless position in some way. We can see teachers do this to students. Still, parents do this to kids. I've punished my kids. I don't feel good about that. I don't think I've done it for a long time now. But and I've been punishing towards other people in my life. So I want to say that so I can start from a position of shared humanity. Like, this is not just other people. This is all of us who engage in subtle forms of punishment. And then let's talk about self-punishment, because so often we turn that anger, blame, criticism, and shame back in on ourselves. This is actually so much more common. And we take a punitive or punishing attitude towards ourselves for our mistakes and wrongdoings. And then we want to coerce. This is where coercion comes in. Coerce ourselves, pressure and force ourselves and should on ourselves in order to create change in ourselves in some way. And we all know the pain that that leads to and how it can ultimately be ineffective. And if it is effective, it's probably not sustainable in the long run.
Yes.
And I've spoken for long enough now, and I'd be interested to hear your thoughts.
That is such a great introduction. I didn't know this was such a, I understand it's a huge part of NBC, but you're so across this, Dr. Rachel. What I'm hearing, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a normal instinct it's a survival mechanism when we're feeling stressed or we're feeling threatened, we're in that hyper arousal state to want to control, to give ourselves, a peace of mind. And so there is a place for it, is what I'm hearing. Rules and safety and equality is a healthy manifestation.
But that's not punishment. That's structures to try and create safety and equality. Punishment, my view is punishment never works very well.
Yeah. Yes.
I think it's natural in that, and it's human and it's common, but I don't think it's effective ever, really.
So really it's up to us to be able to bring things down again so that we can enter into that place of compassion. That's what I'm hearing. And we're not saying ditch the rules. We're saying there is a place for rules, of course, for safety and equality, but ultimately to react or respond from that stress response is never going to lead to a positive outcome.
It's never effective at creating more connection. And if our goal is connection, yes, and mutuality and understanding, which, you know, I think of most of us, unless we're like biologically hardwired psychopaths, most of us, if we really come down to it, we want connection, we want belonging, we want mutuality in our relationships. And, you know, punishment and coercion, which is that tendency to want to force, it's a demand, you know, basically, like you should, you must, you have to, or there'll be punishment. So coercion often comes before punishment. What I wanted to get across, I guess, is that this is very human. It's been in all cultures for all of human history. And that doesn't mean it's good. Just because it's very human doesn't mean it's effective. And I do think that humans have this capacity to rise above those more primitive instincts. It's not to dishonor those primitive instincts, but to see which ones add value and help us and which ones cause more suffering. And in my experience, punishment always causes more suffering.
Thank you for an exceptional introduction. There's an example that's coming to mind because I see a lot of clients who come in for weight loss. And there is absolutely a conditioning. I'm thinking of one client recently in particular who came to me about 6 months ago with a very clear mindset of punishment. And she wanted to do a weight loss program. She'd done Jenny Craig, she'd done shakes, she'd done a personal training, all of which had worked, but as you said, they weren't sustainable. They'd worked for a period of time and then she'd just gained weight again in the months following. And so she chose to do one of my programs called the Doable Detox program, which is holistic and incorporates really reflecting on our own beliefs about our bodies, our relationship to food, our relationship to movement, and strong elements of self-compassion. And she is now successfully a sustainable weight that she's very happy with. And this is now, as I said, 6 months later. But I don't think it's possible to lose weight sustainably with a mindset of punishment. That's what I've seen in more than 15 years of clinical practice. And it's strongly ingrained in both the weight loss, the fitness, the nutrition industry. Unfortunately, I think it's rife. And
it's everywhere.
Often know another way. So
it's everywhere. It's everywhere. I mean, Mia has left a comment here a few minutes ago saying, I punish myself when I open up to somebody about my emotions on a deep level. The narrative is, I shouldn't have done that. Now that person's going to think differently about me. So, you know, it's everywhere. Our inner critic rises up and punishes us and says, you know, you should lose weight. You shouldn't feel this way. You shouldn't be so vulnerable. You shouldn't be angry. You shouldn't be scared. You shouldn't be sad. You know, you should have handled that better. You know, there's so many shoulds, and it's self-punishment. It's self-punishment, and it leads to more shame, which leads to more self-punishment, which leads to more shame, and it's a vicious cycle, and we need to find a way to break it. And the antidote is empathy or compassion.
Yes, very nice. So just before you move into empathy and compassion, are you saying that people, our listeners and all of us, can use that recognition of the should that we're telling ourselves as a flag for an area that we're using self-punishment? Is that your suggestion, Rachel?
It's a flag, and for many of us, it's our modus operandi. So it's hard to see flags when it's like flag, 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 flag. You know, so many of us in this culture.
I hear you.
We live, and some days are worse than others for most of us, but we can have whole days where our mind is consumed with self-punishment, self-criticism, should thinking, blame, judgment, towards ourselves that can seep out and go on to others, but then it comes back to ourselves again. And for many people, this is their MO. So there's a lot of work to do here in terms of learning a more compassionate mindset, because compassion is the antidote to, it's like the opposite of blame, judgment, and criticism. Compassion doesn't say should. Compassion says, why has this happened? What's going on? What are you feeling? What is needed here? You know, compassion has a very different kind of voice, asks very different questions. And so, but this is a big piece of work for many of us, to find people in our lives who will hold us with compassion and acceptance in our pain, and holding ourselves in compassion instead of in this self-punishment. It's just so rife.
Well, so what I'm hearing is it's transgenerational as well, as in it's been passed down really, at least from our grandparents' parents to us, and then hopefully it ends with us. But it seems to me it's about our values, and really finding ways to hold our values ourselves, and find others who reflect that enough that we can build some momentum behind it.
It's about 4,000 or 5,000 years old in the culture, according to some sociologists that I've read.
Yeah, wow.
So we've been doing this punishment and coercion thing in a big way for about 4,000 or 5,000 years, since agricultural revolution really took off and our society became very hierarchical and power over. Traditional societies operate under less coercion and punishment than modern societies. I would like to ask our listeners, before we go on to talk about compassion practice, if anyone would like to share, what are the subtle ways that you've punished yourself or others? Because this can be so subtle that we don't even recognize it as punitive. So if you have any ideas, if you're listening, what are some of the subtle ways you punish yourself? Thoughts that you think, actions that you take that are self-punishing, and what are the subtle ways that you punish other people, if you're willing to be really honest? Do you ghost them? Do you ignore them? Do you put salt in their coffee instead of sugar? No, I'm just joking. What do you do though?
Holding back, a subtle holding back. It comes to my mind when you said that.
Yes. So I wonder, someone said being silent. Kim said being silent. Yeah, the silent treatment is a form of subtle punishment. That's very common.
It's such a big topic. I really like this one.
Stephanie says not eating. Yeah, so there's ways we punish ourselves with food, either withholding or overindulging. Same with drugs and alcohol. We can, like anything, we can use these things for our enjoyment, or we can use them for more destructive purposes.
About the intention then, why we're doing something.
Exactly. And that answers Stephanie's question, what's the difference between putting boundaries up and punishing someone? It's all about intention, as you say, Alexis. What's your intention?
Yeah, even rewards. I'm wondering whether rewards and incentive may have, that kind of swinging effect. What do you find?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like, what's the intention behind reward? Traditionally, it's to kind of make the person do that thing again. That's why we reward dogs, which is fine because they're dogs and we want them to, shake hands again. But with children, the modern advice is if a child shows you their painting, then instead of giving them a lolly and telling them that it's beautiful, you might say, I really like it. Do you like it? What do you think of it? You kind of want to have them bring the enjoyment and satisfaction and pride back into themselves, which is different to reward. Reward places the power outside of us, as does punishment. And that's a power over model. But what compassion and empathy do is they are a power with model, a shared power model, where I have the power to say to the child, I really like it. I think it's beautiful. What do you think? Do you feel pleased with yourself? So that there's this sharing in the satisfaction rather than the reward energy or the punishment energy. I don't know if that answers your question.
It does. And that's been my experience too. If I'm using a reward, it's because I'm not getting satisfaction from the thing that I'm doing, and rather place emphasis on the task at hand, what values it meets, connect with something more meaningful than a reward, which implies that what I'm doing is not enjoyable, it's not satisfying. Yeah,
that's right. So it lacks that intrinsic motivation. A few other answers in the comments. Mia says, I withdraw, so withholding food, starvation, over exercising, OCD behaviors. Joe says, eating unhealthy, not caring much, doing what my body doesn't want, not sleeping properly. I'm trying to think I think my main forms of self-punishment are these days, they're cognitive. It's just my inner critic on bad days just still goes off and tells me, that I'm not a very nice person or not a good mother, or I should be doing this and that and should be doing better. And I don't know, what about you, Alexis? Do you relate to that?
I was thinking on the rewards, and I definitely use coffee as a reward.
I think both of us do that.
Yes, but the punishment is, and I can relate to that subtle, insidious form of punishment that I know I'm guilty of with ex-partners, rather than just opening up a conversation for the sake of understanding. Yeah, manipulation is probably how I would have used punishment in the past. And I agree, it always feels terrible. It always feels icky and uncomfortable, and like something is just not sitting well.
And that's the test, to answer the question, how do you tell the difference between punishing and setting boundaries? The test is in the body. It feels different. Yes. Setting a boundary compassionately, but very firmly and clearly, that feels quite good. It feels kind of solid.
Empowering,
right?
fortifying, clarifying often.
Yes, whereas using punishment energy or even reward energy, as you say, it just doesn't feel very good.
Just sticky, messy, icky. Yeah, like I'm twisting myself.
Anxiety provoking.
Yes.
Stressful. Yeah.
And that there's going to be a snowball effect.
That's right. And then you start worrying, like, oh my God, what's going to happen next? Yeah, and you feel guilty. There's all sorts of cues in the body as well as the mind about the difference. So just track that in yourself. You'll get to know it over time.
I love that Mia acknowledges how raw this is.
Yes,
it is, and that interesting comment on punishing ourselves once we've been open. I know I have related to that in the past too, Mia. And so.
Me too. It's called a vulnerability hangover. The next day you start going, oh my God, I said too much. Why did I say that?
And it does get easier, right? It gets easier. I was very vulnerable at a presentation yesterday, and I had no hangover for the first time. So it's taken, it's taken about 12 or 18 months to get there, but it's possible. Let's get on to empathy, because I'm keen to soak up your suggestions for brewing a more empathic existence and how to cultivate self-compassion, please.
So first of all, I think sometimes we have to manage our physiology, because very often punishment and coercion, so the desire to cause pain or hurt to someone else, or the desire to make them behave the way we want them to, all very human, because it comes out of dysregulation. It comes out of having a physiological and emotional state that's in fight flight, that's heightened stress and anxiety, hurt and pain.
Survival, right?
I mean, so forgive yourself, because this is coming from your survival mechanisms. Anything that's trying to help you survive can't be all bad, right? It's just not effective. So the first thing we need to do, and this is often the most challenging bit, right, is to wait it out and calm yourself, bring yourself down, settle yourself, find a way to discharge this energy instead of taking it all out on somebody else or yourself. So there are a multitude of ways, as we know, and it's probably good to come up with your own list. If you don't like meditation or yoga, maybe you like walking, maybe you like going to the gym, maybe you go swimming, maybe you need to call someone and just talk for an hour and get all the energy out that way. Make a list of the ways that you can discharge some of this energy, or at least let it settle, or both, so that it doesn't end up getting acted out in a coercive or punishing way to somebody that maybe doesn't deserve it or who you care about. And then once you've settled yourself down, which could take an hour, or it could take a day, or it could take a week, or it could take longer. It depends on the size of the amount of triggering.
Yeah.
And be patient with yourself. It might take a while depending on how triggered you are. Then you want to ask yourself, what am I actually feeling? Because in the whirlpool of distress, it's hard to identify the more subtle underlying feelings like disappointment, like sadness, like fear, like hurt, So when you've settled yourself down, you can ask yourself, what am I actually feeling? Maybe write that down. Get a feelings list and identify and name what the actual feelings are. We keep coming back to this all the time, right? And then what is it that I really need? Because the mind will tell a story. I need that other person too. And that's the coercion and punishment. I need my child to behave better. I need my boss to treat me better. I need my partner to stop drinking. And it's very understandable when we're really upset that the mind goes to strategies that other people need to enact. But when we're calmer, we can say, what do I actually need? Now, I might get the answer to that question quickly, or I might not. I've had to sit with that question sometimes for days and days and days and days.
I love hearing that. It's so human and so real and true.
It's like, I've been so distressed or confused or whatever, like, what do I actually need here? And I won't normally be able to answer that question until I've restored some degree of calm. But when I can get clear on more deeply what I'm feeling and what my needs are, my values, then I'm empowered, then I can express that, or then I can take action, or maybe then the action is I'm able to let go to some degree to create peace, self-empowerment. Maybe that's one of my needs, is some self-connection, some self-compassion, or some peace. And maybe only I can do that. But even I don't realize that or see that when I'm really dysregulated. So that's why step 1 of self-soothing is absolutely crucial.
Rachel, that is such a great formula. Excuse me just for one moment. I would love to just reiterate that for our listeners, because I think you've just given a really clear step-by-step process to break the pattern of self-punishment and replace it with self-compassion. And what a fundamental place to work. So what I've heard you say, and please correct any bits that are not true to say, and I will have to sign off straight after this, but
Sure.
The first step you've suggested is settling and soothing and allowing the time that is necessary for that to happen.
Yeah.
And sometimes if it's a big issue, it may take up to a week. It can take time to let things settle down.
It takes as long as it takes.
Yes. And the only thing I wanted to add to that is that that's where the tolerance comes in too, to be able to be with the discomfort rather than push it away, which will only drag out the process, as we know.
Yeah.
Then once things have settled, we can ask, what am I actually feeling? And I love the suggestion of using a list, because seeing it in written form or writing it ourselves is quite an awesome process in itself. I loved the post you made of journaling with the scrambled head, and then before journaling she's got a scrambled head, and then after journaling that big scramble is on the page. It's such a simple step.
Get it out of here and onto there. Yeah.
Yes. Then what is it that I actually need. And again, allowing as much time for that as possible. And that's, again, where holding it on a page can be helpful, to keep it forefront of mind. What do I need? And even giving myself some suggestions. And then I'm in an empowered place to either express, make a request, or to act for myself, or if necessary, let go.
Yeah.
It's a really complete process. Thank you.
Yeah, it is. And, you know, it takes a lot of slowing down. I can't access my deeper feelings and needs unless I slow down. And that's the point of our practice group, monthly practice groups, is to provide a safe space where we can come together as a group and work in pairs and slow down out of the normal fast-paced conversational mode of this culture and really be present and relax into and dive into those deeper feelings and needs.
Yes, relaxation go hand in hand. Relaxation goes hand in hand with feelings and needs. I would have to agree.
Yeah.
And on that, I'll post a couple of links below, one to our practice group, and another for anyone who's interested is I'm leading an ecstatic dance, which is actually a movement-based practice that I have personally found incredibly valuable for releasing, for discharging, even quite deep release. So I'll post that link for anybody who's interested to attend that one.
I intend to be there.
Wonderful. Yes. Well, I look forward to seeing your moves. Or actually not. We actually don't look at each other. Like we're really in our own space. So
that makes me feel a lot better.
I would love to see your moves some other time. And is there anything else you would like to say before we close off?
I'm just thinking, this is me thinking out loud on the spot. I haven't even mentioned this to you, Alexis, but I'm thinking of running a weekly dyad process for anybody on Zoom who, a mutual friend of ours, Murray, and I did a dyad process for an hour last night on Zoom. And again, it reminded me the importance of slowing way down so that we can access our feelings, our deeper feelings and our needs, dive under the anxiety or anger or whatever it might be, agitation, the stress. We want to get underneath that to something a bit softer and a bit deeper and a bit more meaningful, I suppose. And I remembered again, we always forget, don't we, as humans, that requires slowing down. Anyway, so I'll talk to you more about the possibility of doing a dyad process with our listeners, which means on Zoom with one other person in breakout rooms, doing a process with another human that helps you do this very work that we're talking about.
Yeah, it's like nothing else. I'm so there.
Okay. And the last Sunday of this month is our practice group. That's right. Yes. So please show up. We would love to meet you, see you, share with you, practice with you in the flesh. Yes. Thank you again, Dr. Rachel. Beautiful session today. Thank you. And we'll see you all next Sunday. Ciao. Good night. Bye. Bye.